I would now like to invite Dr. Michelle Nemec to the front. Dr. Michelle Nemec is a change maker who not only changes those around her, but reinvents herself through using mindset and EQ skills. All the way from Australia, Dr. Michelle Nemec is a compelling and unforgettable speaker who's known for inspiring others. As a keynote speaker, she has addressed audiences across several continents. She will soon have earned her 6th degree, and her PhD investigated the role of emotional literacy in stakeholder well-being. She is an author and an educationalist, a law graduate and an MBA student, as well as a marathon runner and ocean swimmer who will swim around the Greek islands next year. Her experience in education, executive coaching, and business set her apart as a lifelong learner and a person chasing adventures. Dr. Michelle Nemec, our student speaker, is talking on Reboot, Rebound, and Recoil, the role of resilience for individuals and organizations in the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome.
Thank you. Right. Well, we've all come out of a really difficult period called the pandemic. There was loneliness, there was connection, there was grief and uncertainty and a feeling of being out of control. Having our freedoms curtailed came at a heavy toll. I was fortunate I found some ways to cheat. How did I cheat? Well, in Sydney, Australia, we had a 5-kilometre zone that we could go into. The ocean is less than 5 kilometres. And so every day a group and I, of women it was, swam in the ocean and we kept each other going. A male friend, a young friend, encouraged me to become a bikie. And so here I was going to bikie lessons on the other side of Sydney. This was all permissible. And then learning how to become a bikie, riding around in areas where others couldn't go. So I had a very fortunate experience, and I never dreamed of myself as a bikie. Really, I'm riding a Vespa. It's a scooter. I'm telling a half-truth. But the idea of doing something to break out of, the adversity and the heavy feeling and feeling that we just didn't know and being also fearful was exhilarating. And I actually purchased the Vespa. Not just writing, but purchasing. The context of what I'm presenting today, and look, I am cheating a little bit because I do have a PhD, but not so because I am still studying, and so I am a student. This is really, if you like, a mashup of those 3 areas of study. And I cannot go into detail and depth on the paper, but I'm just pulling out some points. The paper is there, and we can all look at it later. So I'm looking at the concept of resilience, and I'm sure there's a PhD in this, but it's a massive area. I'm looking at it from the individual perspective, from organisational and industry perspectives, and hope to give you some insight into some of my experience, but also what the research is saying most importantly. As an aside, during the pandemic, I actually did an informal observation about what was sustaining people, what they were finding difficult and how they got through it. I presented some of that last year in Paris. So that does inform what I'm saying as well. So this is really my personal experience and years and years and years of study. I don't intend to study formally at the end of the current degree, but we're all lifelong learners. And how exciting is it to be in Cambridge University? I'm honoured and thrilled. And to meet each one of you and feel your impact is a true privilege, so thank you. There is a point at which in a conceptual way, there's a point of juncture, if you like, between these areas. And I would call this a matrix. And as I researched and read the definitions in the literature, I found it really fascinating because in the personal area of resilience, Andrew Fuller, who is a preeminent psychologist in Australia, defined it as the ability to bungee jump through the pitfalls of life. And I love that definition. But I would actually argue that we don't just bungee jump and return to where we were, because if we think of the challenges we have, we go forward. whether it's our character or our morals or our ethics or what we will tolerate or what we won't, it actually takes us forward. And so it actually takes us beyond what we ever thought possible of ourselves. In terms of industry and organisations, it's quite a different phenomenon. It requires the business or the industry to absorb, but to retain what is their structure, their purpose, their function. And that again comes with a qualifier, because we know today that one thing is certain. If nothing else is certain, it is change, and it's the rate of change. And so, as I said last night, we need to get our shit together. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. So that we can adapt, pivot, and be ready for change. And I come to you today dressed courtesy of Air Italia. What a privilege. I certainly didn't see it coming. And I guess that has required me to find some resilience and dig deep. So here I am at my local beach. Since I finished my PhD in 2014, where I seriously didn't exercise for 8 years, because I was a mother of a young child. I started when he was 2. I was in executive roles in leading schools in Sydney, boarding schools. It took me 8 years. And at that time, I didn't realise I could multitask and do other things, very focused. When I finished, I promised myself I was going to challenge myself on a physical level, connect more to the community and get out there, get involved and do things. So I've taken up ocean swimming, ocean paddling, marathon running. I've now retired from marathon running. New York ended in a very serious injury. I actually had to walk the entire marathon.
Wow.
Yeah, not good. Taped up like I was going into war. 3 weeks before that marathon, I could not walk.
Wow.
I'm not lying. I could not walk. Anyway, I got through it. No more marathon running. I've done some singing and various things, and all of these, including the Greek islands next year, is with an amazing organisation, and you see it on my costume, Can2. So we raise money for cancer research, and we know how common that is. And here you see me at my local beach. This was before the event, and apart from my catastrophe with the luggage, the resilient aspect that came out from this event, apart from going into the scariest beach in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, most extreme rips, ocean conditions and wind conditions. On this day, I arrived there after looking at the beach the whole week and seeing the day before the beach was closed, turning up, most excited, I'm going to do this, I'm going to conquer my fears. About a quarter of the way through the event, you probably don't know what these are, but we have blue bottles. We have many things in Australia that cause us pain and grief. I started to realise I was getting bitten. So first time attacked and I ignored it, just keep swimming.
Is that jellyfish?
Yeah, it's a jellyfish with a long sort of spindle and it wraps around you, and if you try and pull it off, and the sting it gives you is a very severe burning sensation. I don't wish it on you. But I actually got attacked a third time, and at that point I did this, which means come help. So I had one wrapped around my arm. I have actual scars in here and across here. I had it on my shoulder and my back. And the guy on the surf ski and the person in the boat alongside, come on, get in, get in. I said, oh no. I could see the finish. And so I did finish. I was a bit worse for wear and went home and just lay on the lounge. But my point of this is, we don't know when adversity and resilience will find us. Mm-hmm. And it could be a physical situation, it could be emotional, it could be financial, it can be on many levels. But what we find is it boosts us up. Now I know I can get through that sort of adversity. So I'm looking to challenge myself in many ways. It is time to reboot, to rebound, and or to recoil. And there are some interesting phenomena that are going on at the moment that I will talk about. So on an individual level, this means looking at our well-being, our nutrition, our sleep, our hydration, and what we do with our lives. There are so many people I have spoken to who have decided to do something completely different. Even the man that I sat with on the plane on his way to Dublin to find himself said to me, I feel sad about what's happened to me in the last 2 years working from home. There has been bullying and there has been a very difficult time, and it started in the pandemic. So I'm going now to mix with the locals and find out who I am and what is the next chapter of my life. In New South Wales, many people have moved from Sydney into the regional areas because of working from home. So it's given us life choices and opportunities that just weren't there before. What it's given everybody is time. Time to work out who we are, and I hope you've done this because I have. Time to work out what we want to take from the experience, reinvent ourselves, what we hold as important. And as they say, let the little things just slide off us. Focus on what are the big issues. It's a different story in organisations and industry. They've had to do a hard pivot. There are so many businesses, as you would know, that have not got through the pandemic. Startups, local area shops. There's a lot of vacant areas around where I am. Businesses that just couldn't make it through. Some, of course, including where my sister works in Seattle, Amazon, they're thriving. The online world of shopping and food delivery going very well. The in-house dining, etc., not so good. So the idea now is that in industry and organisations, there is more and more pressure for them to be able to adapt their business strategy, their organisation, the tools that they are using, because what the research is saying, the profit that comes, looking at all businesses across, is for a lesser period. And so there is a need to be able to do that hard pivot more often and more frequently, which I found an interesting phenomenon when I was reading to write this paper. What was the last experience that you had? Was it a relationship in terms of you're needing to dig deep on your resilience? Was it work? Was it family, financial, some social, emotional grief or whatever? Just take a moment to think about it. Did you reflect on what was happening to you physiologically? Were you aware? People are nodding. I'm speaking to a very particular group of people here. How did you reflect on that response? What did you learn and how did you evolve? I think that they are the key points, because every day we don't know what's going to happen. We do not know. We can choose how to respond. Without the social emotional skills, or as Martin Seligman has given us, positive psychology, PERMA, which is positive relationships, engagement, a sense of meaning and achievement. We can all look like this. We can choose this. Walk around, poor me, poor me. I prefer, and I can see from your faces, you prefer this, the fist pump. Yes. So how do we get to that? Well, we need to develop from all of our experiences, our psychological assets. We need to keep developing our personal qualities, our attributes. We need a very strong network of relationships around us. And we need to take in check what is our internal self-talk. Is it affirming or is it negative and destructive? Sure. And then how do we respond to the negativity and the toxicity around us? Yeah. My default is remove myself. I have no tolerance for this one.
He's so cute.
Yeah. So here are some things about resilience. I'm sure you've heard about this, but there are people who have just said, I'm pulling up tools. I don't want to just continue anymore. I'm going to become a slovenly slob. I reject this way of living. I don't want to work full time anymore. I'm going to retire early. I have other options. I don't need this corporate life. And there is something I've read that in the UK, obviously it's niche, but this slovenly slob concept has taken hold. And people are celebrating the slovenly slob. And at times we need to do this. In fact, I had a short stint last year experimenting with a friend. Let's try it for a few months to be slovenly slobs. So here's the marathon runner, the slovenly slob. So, lying around on the couch, staying in pyjamas, this sort of thing. My point is, there is a place for this. I don't know that I want to, I've gone back to getting up early, exercising, etc. for short periods. So it's really about being in touch with yourself, your needs, self-care, self-compassion, and taking action to address these things. So obviously, we need self-compassion. We need to get our brain into train to understand what resilience issues do to us. And one of the great things I've learned is through my no luggage, being vulnerable, it draws compassion.
Exactly.
And so thank you to those I've had the opportunity to discuss the issue with and the tips that you've given me. And it also brings out a sense of universality and empathy and all of this. And what it does, it actually enables us to see, oh my goodness, wow. Okay, I'm just going to stop when the 5 minutes is up. This is what happened to me at the last conference, but that's okay. What it does, it helps us to turn misadventure into the adventure. And I'm not sure that I thought quite deeply about this, I'm not quite sure that in every single situation there is a positive that we see at that moment. But when we can look back, we can celebrate something about the person. I'm thinking about death here when I say this. Or find something that challenged us and made us more than we are. So this grit to quit, I actually stated that to the gentleman on the plane when he said, I don't know whether I'm going to go back to work. I said, how long have you been there? And I said, no, give it up. It takes grit to quit. The notion of being complacent and in a rut and comfortable, I'm sure you are not in this group, but for the general person out there, they feel very comfortable. This is easy. And even if they know they should probably challenge themselves and make the move, they don't. They don't. Let it rot. In China, there is a generation of young people who are rebelling, and they're actually doing what they're calling a lying flat movement. So this is coming out of the pandemic, but it's also a protest against the communist regime. So these are, what the Chinese culture is, I don't need to tell you, high achieving, etc. So this has gained international attention. This young group of people in their 20s, mid-20s, who should be climbing their way up, who is saying no, and they actually are doing lying down. It's the same as the protest holding up a blank placard because they're concerned about repercussions. The other thing I think that the pandemic has done is enabled us to clean out. And I mean both in a physical sense, but also the mind, and perhaps some people, some relationships. It has unfortunately been a situation where pretty much everyone I've spoken to has lost some friendships, lost some relationships, lost some contact. And that's happened to me. And it's been very unfortunate. But holding those people very close who support us, I have probably 5, 6, 7. And I believe that's normal or average, whatever average is. But I believe in the physical sense, and it's ironic because I've just been on shopping sprees, which I don't do, but it's been guilt-free. purge and feel the surge. And so I'm not really talking about minimalisation, decluttering. I'm going heavy duty here. And I've been experimenting with this. So I have no jewellery. I own beautiful jewellery and I've kept a few pieces. The rest I've chosen not to have. I used to get my nails done and they were impeccable. So what I'm doing is just cutting back, and keeping things for just in case, or what if, or, you know, any pictures or adorations or ornaments. I'm not doing this. My house, in a physical sense, is completely transformed. How do I feel? I feel free. I feel light. I feel no compulsion to go into shops at any time. So me coming here and going into shops is an unusual experience. Anyway, I encourage you to try some of this and just have things that are serving you in a particular way, that have a purpose and are functional. And there I stop. I thank you for your attention, and this is just the first part of what was a 3-part thing. I always tend to, you know, overdo things, over-prepare, conscientious, 6 degrees, etc., etc. Anyway, it's been an absolute thrill and honour to be here, and how lucky are we in this post-pandemic world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle Nemec, for that excellent presentation, which we can all, after the last 3 years, can say amen, right?
Next, I would like to have Dr. Michelle Nemec, eminent speaker, come up and join us. Student speaker. She's a lifelong student, right? As we all are. And she's quite resilient.
And today we're here at the Global Research Conference 2023 at King's College, Cambridge, and we have Dr. Michelle Nemec from Australia. Dr. Michelle, what was your main takeaway for your talk today?
My main takeaway was we live in a very uncertain and changing world. And the only thing that is certain is the degree of change that we're all going to experience. Excuse me. In this post-pandemic world, my main message is about resilience. It's about developing a skill set to manage ourselves and support those around us. It's also that organisations and industries need to be resilient if we are to make it through the future, because we know that we are going to face ongoing challenge and ongoing change. And that is my main point.
They were powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.